Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're doing something a little bit different because last month I did an analysis video on Joe Cocker and it was his performance at Woodstock in 1969, and that was with a little help from my friends if I remember correctly. But during that video, I got a little bit sidetracked with the analysis when I was talking about Joe's background and also his story from 1969 onwards, and I'm going to leave a link to that video in the description below so you guys can check that out, as well as a link to the original performance because it was one of those videos that did get blocked, so those will both be in the description below. But the reason that I got sidetracked was that given all of his success from 1969 onwards that I was talking about, he found himself $800,000 in debt in 1976, so following all of those successful years of touring. So I will be referencing Joe briefly in this video, just because that was the video I was doing at the time that started the topic of conversation, and I'm wearing the same clothes for continuity, but now that I've told you that, it doesn't really make any difference, but hopefully it will make it easier to watch. So, getting into why I'm bringing this up now, I watch a lot of artists and performances on my channel. I analyze a lot of different artists as well. And a lot of people, even nowadays, are still signing record contracts, not really knowing what they're getting into. And there are other artists that I have featured on this channel who have since signed management contracts with management companies that have got a really bad reputation. And it's something that I feel like I want to bring up on the channel. I have done before. If you guys have watched me talking with Frank Marino a couple of months ago, Frank's one of those guys that in the 70s, he's been through all of this with recording contracts and record labels, and he's really up against it now because of all of those things that came up in the past that he signed a contract that is still making his life really difficult now in 2020, which is crazy. But the record industry hasn't changed, and like I'm going to say in this video in the future when we look at the other footage, if anything, it's got worse. I do find it a shame to see some artists, especially nowadays, who have already got a following online. They are already successful. They've built a fan base, and then they sign with a major record label. The reason that the major record label are getting involved is they can see you've already got the fan base. All of the people that are buying your music are invested in you as an artist, so you don't need a third-party company to get involved. The reason they're getting involved is because they can see the dollar signs. They can see you're already successful. Back in the times of 1969, with Joe as the example, people needed to sign to a record label because there was no way of guys like Joe getting their music out there independently because the internet didn't exist yet. Whereas nowadays, you can do it all yourself. So, when somebody is already successful, of course, they're going to get an offer from a record label because the record label can already see you've done the job for them. They now don't have to spend money on building a fan base from scratch or marketing. A lot of the hard work has been done for them, and then they can just sign this person up to the record label and therefore bring all of that fan base to the record label, and they've done nothing to gain that. So it is such a shame to see that kind of thing happening. Speaking from my own personal perspective, when I started to get a lot of subscribers on YouTube, and I'm talking about maybe 50, 60, 70,000, around that time, I started to get a lot of emails from people who said, "You're doing really well on YouTube, we love what you're doing, and we think that we can grow your channel even faster and really explode you into the media space and on social media." And when you then reply to them, they say, well, what we're going to be doing is signing a 50-50 contract, so everything in the future that happens on your YouTube channel is split 50-50. That is the point, that I got none of this interest until I had a lot of subscribers. Unfortunately, the vultures that are circling up there, and you can include record labels in that company, when they swoop in, they hit you with their pitch, with something that they have spent years perfecting to try and get you to believe you need them for some reason, that they can offer you something that nobody else can. And I will start the old video that I did last month soon, where I do mention about it being a loan that they're offering you in terms of a financial incentive and a figure that they might put on a recording contract. But the thing that they are trying to offer you, you don't need. We've already covered that in this video so far. So they try and hit you with that pitch. If you are at all switched on from a business perspective, you will know that for a successful business, all you need is a work ethic to actually put in the work. First of all, you need to have a good product. And if you've got a fan base, if you've attracted a lot of people, you have the product. They are coming to see you and coming to purchase from you something that you've made. And in musical terms, this might be an album, it might be a single, it might just be your music. If you're building a fan base and you are getting thousands of people involved, you have already got the thing that the record label are trying to offer you, because that's all money does. And especially if you've recorded everything yourself, you don't need the money from the record label for the production costs to go into a studio, because you can already do it yourself if you've released your own music. So there is nothing that they can offer you that you don't already have. Try and not get thrown off the scent by the pitch and by the technical jargon and by them promising things that they won't deliver on, because as soon as you sign a contract, that is it. Unfortunately, you've now signed your artistry to a third party who now own you as an artist. So in a nutshell, if you are a YouTube creator, or if you are a musician or an independent artist, and you start to get interest from third party companies, including record labels, it's not rocket science. They're becoming interested in you because you're becoming successful. That's what it is. That's what's happening. So try and keep a level head. Obviously, there might be a deal from an independent label that's offering you a contract that might be beneficial to you. Obviously, get a lawyer, have a look through the contract, make sure that they're not asking you to sign over any of your publishing rights, any of your future publishing rights, or anything that you might write artistically in the future as well. Always get a lawyer to read through it. I'm fortunate in that I can speak having first-hand experience of these emails and of these contracts of so many companies wanting to get involved with what I'm doing. It all happens at about 50 or 60 when they know they can start to make money from you without having to do anything themselves. But without further ado, let me now throw back into the video that I did last month when I was looking at Joe, and keep the rant going all the way through that until the end of the video. And this is the major thing that I want to bring up in relation to this guy who was so talented but ended up almost $1 million in debt for doing what he did and just entertaining people, getting a connection with people, all of the things that I pointed out in this video. Somehow, the music industry, their biggest hustle on the public is to make people think that getting a record deal is a good thing. It's a loan. It's like going to the bank and asking for $800,000. They want that money paid back. And if you said to somebody, oh, you'll never guess what happened. I'm so lucky. I've finally made it. And they'll say, what have you done? I've just got an £800,000 loan from the bank. The people won't say, oh, congratulations, you really deserve it. Finally, you've got a break. They'll say, well, that's madness. You have to pay that back. And you have to sell so much of your product to even break even. So unfortunately, nowadays, the record deals are even worse than they were back in the 60s and the 70s. But it has been so well marketed by the record labels because they're an industry. Of course, they put a lot of money into making all of their artists look like they're earning lots of money and look like they're doing really well, whereas they're not. It's been so well marketed, people will queue up around the block to enter a competition where the prize is a recording contract. And dare I say that the record labels are not looking for artists that are clued in to the industry. They don't want somebody that can sing, play an instrument, write songs. They want somebody who is just talented but don't really know how the music industry works, because that suits them. And that's exactly, unfortunately, what you tend to get on these talent competitions. Somebody will enter it, and the guy winning it doesn't have a back catalogue of original material, has not been touring for 20 years. They've just entered a competition, and previously they were working at a supermarket, and that's just as much as they put into, but they just happen to be very talented. That is the ideal candidate for a record label, for the industry, because they know that they can take this talent and take this person to the cleaners, and the person doesn't know how the business works. So they're going to be happy touring the world, playing at gigs, having no rights to anything. And as soon as they come to the end of the year and say, "Where's my payment?" the record label say, "Well, what payment? We paid you $1 million and we used that for the recording, the tour, and now all of the royalties that we are making from your tours and your performances, we own them all." So that person is left high and dry, but that is exactly what these talent shows are geared towards. Like I said all the way back when I mentioned about the music industry being an industry, they have channeled it down so that the person that they can put on their albums is the person that they can take advantage of and doesn't have the knowledge of the industry, because if they did, they'd never sign the recording contract in the first place. So my final thought would be to support independent music if you can and buy a song or two, but also independent music has never been about making money. You've never heard anyone say, "Oh, I really want to be a millionaire and get a sports car, so I'm going to become an independent musician and try and release my own material on my own website and do everything myself." They always say, "I want to get signed, and I want to sign a record contract with Sony, and this is what I want to do to be a millionaire." And that's the vision they have of the music industry. But now, because there is a foundation in place for sites to support independent musicians, the true artistry has now got a chance to get support from fans and get financial support as well. So now there is a chance that there can be a little bit of money in independent music. Back in the late 60s, this was the independent artist. This was the only way that artists could get any publicity and play in front of people. And I guarantee you that Joe did not start singing and performing with the idea of becoming a millionaire. It was his passion for music and his passion for the blues that made him get up on stage. And there's no way of faking this. You cannot put this amount of effort and connection into a performance pretending to do it for money. Fortunately, there are so many great examples of artists like this back in the 60s who were the cream of the crop, and they were doing it for their own artistic expression and for their passion for music, and that's what comes across. But thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!